Girl?
The good ones, yes.
Stop. Ow. Why are you from cops? What do they do? I don't know. Not really. I see where some people coming up here, but like it's
But the difference is though, this ain't out here to support the good cops versus the bad cops. You feel me?
I'm not hating.
Okay, but see, look, what you don't understand is we out here, we targeted on the bad cops. You feel me? We not out here for the good cops. You feel me? That's not what we out here for. I mean.
No, but you can't argue.
You feel me? You brought this to work. You brought this to work. That's good for somebody like me to come out to you.
About to get your ass whooped today, motherfucker. What's up, Kelly? What's up, Kelly?
Tell that motherfucker. So what we had here is intentional action. You decided to come here in silence, saying that your song is not provocative, but your song is provocative. You are trying to incite a conversation that you feel is necessary. You want to say that you're for cops. Now, granted, we can choose to have this long discussion about how not all cops are bad. But if we have one bad airline pilot, you want to fly that airline? No. If we have one bad athlete, you say, well, the world's coming out, you're going to eat that? No. What you're doing is not identifying the problem. And you don't have to. Your life may have led you to believe that you don't need to identify the problem. But that's what privilege is. You not being aware of what's happening around you. This is inflammatory. You are having an inflammatory conversation.
We lied. Nigga, head over the right,
Mesa, where thousands of protesters are taking part in a demonstration against police brutality. Here is a live picture. This is the I-8 freeway going west near La Mesa. We are hearing that police are diverting the group towards Jackson Drive to get them off the freeway. They are all on foot, as you can see from our live picture. And we're also hearing that police officers are trying to form a line at Grossmont and Jackson Drive. You could see it right there. They are forming a line. This is right near Grossmont Center. It appears officers are going to try and hold them there. So to put things in perspective for you, the next exit on the I-8 West Freeway is Lake Murray, and the next exit after that is College. You can see the protesters are just a few feet in front of law enforcement right now on the I-8 West. This is near La Mesa. This protest began around 2 this afternoon outside of La Mesa Police Headquarters. It started with just a few hundred people and has grown to thousands. This comes days after the viral arrest video of a young black man who was detained at the Grossmont Trolley Center by a white officer. After that confrontation was all caught on camera, you could see this video. This is from Wednesday. La Mesa Police announced Thursday that the officer you see here in this video that was involved in this arrest has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. And as you know, this week has been filled with unrest across the country. Of course, this local demonstration also comes as protests have popped up nationwide over the death of Minneapolis man George Floyd, an unarmed black man who died in police custody after a white officer kneeled on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. The Minneapolis police officer has since been arrested and charged with third-degree murder. Still, protests rage on for the third straight day in Minneapolis and have even turned violent. Those protests have caused damage to local businesses across the city, and protests have spread across the country. This morning, close to home here in LA, we saw police cars set on fire. We will continue to monitor this situation here locally. The Black Lives Matter protest in La Mesa, as you could see, the group has grown to thousands of people, and they are being met by law enforcement on the I-8 West Freeway. Law enforcement is trying to contain this protest, which started this afternoon. So right now you're looking at the protest that has gone on the I-8 Freeway west towards Jackson Drive. You see police officers are forming a line right now. This is near Grossmont Center. This line is at Grossmont and Jackson Drive. This protest started in front of La Mesa Police Headquarters this afternoon. As you could see, there is plenty of unrest happening here in San Diego and across the country. People are very angry about the controversial arrest that happened on Wednesday. You see a white police officer pushing an unarmed black man to the bench. And since that police officer, again, has been put on administrative leave pending an investigation. This Black Lives Matter protest is also protesting police brutality across the country. Protest raged again in Minneapolis for the third straight day, protesting the death of George Floyd, who was an unarmed black man. He died in police custody after a white police officer kneeled on his neck for 7 to 9 minutes. And again, that police officer has been since arrested and charged with third-degree murder. The video you're looking at now is the local incident. This was at the Grossmont Trolley Center. You could see a white police officer push this black man right here several times and then place him on this bench before arresting him. This particular police officer, the local police officer, has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. So there is plenty of anger. People are upset across the country, and it has spread here to San Diego. This protest out on the I-8 freeway looks to have remained peaceful. We saw a CHP helicopter flying overhead. We haven't seen any fights break out. As from our vantage point here, chopper rate, it looks like the protesters have gotten closer to law enforcement. We see people on loudspeakers. We have crews on the ground. Our Heather Hope is there. She will bring us live reports as soon as she can. But as you can see, earlier today, the protest started with just a few hundred, it grew to thousands. They tried to enter the 8 freeway going west in La Mesa. At that time, there were only a few police officers, so the protest was able to overcome law enforcement. They were able to march down the freeway. This is to give you an example of where this is happening. This map is showing the 8 freeway. This is right near Grossmont and Jackson Drive. And again, this is the Grossmont Center. So a lot of people are very familiar with this area. It's the weekend. I'm sure a lot of people are out and about seeing commotion going on. And it appears the police officers are trying to get these people off the freeway, and they're trying to hold them at Grossmont and Jackson Drive. So if you're on the freeway traveling west, the closest exit to right there is Lake Murray. The exit after that is the College exit. So again, this started around 3:30 when protesters were able to break through a police barricade and gain access to the freeway on foot. Protesters, again, looks like everything is very peaceful. Law enforcement is arriving by the minute. So you can see they're forming a strong line. Nobody has gotten past that barricade. Nobody has gotten past that line. It doesn't look like any fights have broken out. We will remain on this picture as long as we can. It looks like some people are exiting the freeway, and that's the goal here. Law enforcement wants to get everybody off the freeway so they can reopen that freeway again and get traffic flowing. And it looks like they are slowly but surely exiting the freeway. Again, this is at Grossmont and Jackson Drive, right near Grossmont Center. There are a few neighborhoods in that area too. It looks like that is the parking lot where people are being diverted off the freeway. And it looks like the effort is fairly successful. It's happening slowly but surely. You could see a large number of people still on the freeway, but then to the left of your screen, you could see that they are slowly exiting the freeway. It looks like there might be some smoke. If we could zoom in closer to that, it might be a flare on the road. It doesn't look like anybody is injured. People are holding signs, chanting Black Lives Matter. They're angry and upset over police brutality, not only here, but in Minneapolis and across the country. So people have gathered in this collective civil unrest, and they're making their voices heard. They want this to stop. They are protesting for several reasons here locally. The controversial arrest of the young black man at Grossmont Trolley Center on Wednesday by an officer, and that confrontation was caught on camera. And again, that officer was placed on leave. And then, of course, across the country, protests have broken out, angry about the death of Minneapolis man George Floyd. He was 46-year-old. He was unarmed, and he died in police custody. You saw an officer kneeling on his neck for nearly 9 minutes, and you can hear him say, "I can't breathe." And shortly after that, he died. So that Minneapolis police officer was swiftly arrested. He was charged with third-degree murder. But again, this whole week has been a very tumultuous week. Everybody is on edge. People are angry, and they're making their voices heard. They want to demonstrate and show that these violent acts need to end. These unjust deaths of unarmed black men need to end. These protests over in Minneapolis have caused damage. They have turned violent. We saw some police cars set on fire in Los Angeles this morning. So far, the protests here locally in La Mesa have remained peaceful. We haven't seen any major damage caused, but we want it to stay that way. We want it to remain peaceful. And as you can see, police officers have swarmed on the scene. They have met the protesters, and they are trying to divert the protesters off the freeway. It is happening slowly but surely, and it looks like this is going to wrap up here in a matter of minutes, maybe within the hour. We will keep this live picture ongoing for you. This is the 8 freeway going west near La Mesa. Police officers are on the freeway near Grossmont and Jackson Drive, meeting protesters right near Grossmont Center. And we're just hearing that a similar protest is planned for El Cajon at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, a similar protest is planned for El Cajon because it appears this one will be wrapping up shortly here. They're diverting this large group of protesters off the 8 freeway to the parking lot of the Grossmont Center, and it looks like it's happening peacefully and everybody is complying. This protest, again, it started around 2 o'clock this afternoon. It started outside of the Mesa Police Headquarters, and you could see how far it has gone. On foot, people are marching. They are meeting these police officers face to face. This comes days after that viral arrest video of a young black man who was detained at the Grossmont Trolley Center by a white officer. After that confrontation was all caught on camera, and then the La Mesa police announced on Thursday, the very next day, that that officer involved has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. But again, this country has been in the middle of unrest this whole week. This local demonstration also comes as protests have popped up nationwide over the death of George Floyd. Protests are happening in Minneapolis again today for the 3rd straight day, and they're happening across the country here in Southern California and LA and San Diego. City protests have spread, across the country. This morning we saw police cars on fire in Los Angeles. We'll continue to monitor this situation here locally on the 8 freeway. And as you can see, this has been going on for several hours now, and we have not heard any reports of any violence breaking out. It looks like everything has remained peaceful. They are right next to police officers and law enforcement here. Again, this started in front of La Mesa Police Headquarters and has made it this far. And people are slowly being diverted off the freeway. Some people are still standing on the freeway. It's unclear what they're saying at this time, but they have signs up, and their signs and what they're saying are being posted on social media. Our Heather Hope is there live at the scene. We also have a few photographers at the scene. We are going to follow this from beginning to end. Again, it started at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and it looks like it is coming to an end near Grossmont Center, this shopping center here, and it is so far it has gone on for almost 3 hours now. This is a Black Lives Matter protest that started as just a few hundred people. This morning it has grown to a few thousand, and protesters actually were able to swarm Interstate 8 going west in La Mesa, and now what you're seeing right now is police officers diverting that group towards Jackson Drive and off the freeway. This is right near Grossmont Center, and it appears the police officers are holding what's left of the protesters there on the freeway. They are trying to put an end to this to get the roads back open and flowing again. So to put things in perspective for you, what you're looking at live is the 8 freeway going west, and then this is right near the Lake Murray exit. Right after that is the College exit, and right around 3:30, so about an hour ago, protesters were able to break through a police barricade to gain access to the freeway on foot. And it started again right outside of La Mesa Police Headquarters. So if you visit our social media pages, Heather Hope is there live. She's been posting videos and pictures of the protesters, and it looks like a few of them are starting to just walk off the freeway. A few of them are walking into the parking lot of the Grossmont Center, and some of them are standing their ground and staying on the freeway, on the 8 freeway going west, met with dozens of police officers and law enforcement. They're trying to keep the protest there. They're trying to keep the line steady so that they don't walk any farther onto the freeway. As you can imagine, that's a very dangerous situation. So they're trying to end this as soon as possible. We have not seen any violence break out. We have not seen any vehicles set on fire or businesses being looted as we have seen in other parts of the country. So far, San Diego's protest has remained very peaceful. Again, another protest is scheduled for 5 o'clock. This one looks to be ending momentarily, and it looks to be very peaceful as well. We've seen on social media that They were planning on this protest for a few days now, and the turnout was huge. It grew to thousands of people in just a matter of hours. Again, it's a Black Lives Matter protest. It has grown to thousands. They're protesting police brutality across the country. They're protesting the controversial arrest of a young black man at the Grossmont Trolley Center by a white police officer. And of course, they're protesting the death of Minneapolis man George Floyd, who died in police custody on Wednesday. It looks like, I thought, and you could see that the CHP helicopter is flying overhead just to make sure that things don't get out of control. It looks like law enforcement has formed a pretty strong line on the freeway, on the 8 freeway going westbound, and they're holding protesters there. Some protesters are holding steady. Others appear to be walking away. And we have another camera up right now. This vantage point is from Center Street Bridge. It looks like this is a vantage point where you can really see the police officers and their line. And just a few feet away, you could see the protesters facing them. So they're face to face. We haven't seen anything being thrown. We haven't seen any violence break out. So far, this has remained peaceful. It started around 2 o'clock this afternoon, so it's been going on for almost 3 hours now. And another one is scheduled for 5 o'clock in that location. Nicolette, that location of the protest at 5 is set for El Cajon. So we will see how that one turns out. We've seen protests across the country, starting in Minneapolis, going all the way here to Southern California and Los Angeles. Fortunately, our protests have remained calm for the most part, remained peaceful. No violence has broken out, violence to the extent of what we've seen in Minneapolis, where police cars have been set on fire and businesses have been looted. So far, it looks like this large group, thousands of people, are just making their voices heard, and they're walking down the freeway. Again, this started at La Mesa Police Headquarters and has made its way all the way to the Grossmont Center via the 8 freeway going westbound. Thousands are there. It looks like they're standing their ground. A lot of them are not going anywhere, while some of them are walking off the freeway to gain access to the parking lot of the Grossmont Center. Of course, this local demonstration has come amid protests that have popped up nationwide. This week has been filled with unrest across the country. This is the local version of the protests that have been happening, and it would appear that some sort of deal has been reached, some sort of negotiation has happened, and a lot of people have turned around and they're walking the other way. But still, there is a small group of people still standing their ground. There is somebody on a loudspeaker right now. I can't hear what he's saying, but let me toss to my colleague Carlo Chiquero. He has a view of the map to put this in perspective for you. Carlo? Thanks,
Alicia. Yeah, we just want to give people a little idea where this is. Of course, freeway is cut off in the 8. The cutoff point is at about this point on the 8, right about Jackson. You can see where that is. As we look in and zoom in a little bit more, apologize for that. We zoom in a little bit more. You can see on the map that it is just before the split to the 125 is where some of the gathered on the eastbound. The protesters seem to be gathered primarily on the westbound lanes. Groups of hundreds there. I think it started out with thousands earlier in the day. Peaceful at this moment. We can be grateful for that because we've seen multiple demonstrations around the country over the day, the last few days, turn to violence rather quickly. It seems like cooler heads are prevailing at the moment here. Again, the traffic seems to be cut off, is cut off right around Jackson Street. We have our perspective from our camera looking from the Center Street Bridge. It's about down there. So we're getting a decent view of what's happening right now. There are supposed to be other demonstrations scheduled for later on today. We're not sure what those are going to be like. This demonstration, of course, it's a social justice, racial injustice rally triggered this week. The flashpoint was the George Floyd death at the hands of police where people saw the life get choked out of him in slow motion in graphic terms, and then a delay in action perhaps in that seemed to be the trigger point in Minneapolis, and this has been like a virus spreading around the country, exploding all over the place. Right now, as we look at the freeway, Interstate 8, you can see in the westbound lanes, that's where a lot of the demonstrators are. They're also on the eastbound lanes now, all facing off against police who are holding the line, but it seems to be peaceful. It looks like we may have seen some dispersal of some of the crowd. I don't know if they're reassembling somewhere else, but they seem to be walking off Interstate 8 right now. Alicia, you've been watching this for a while, and you saw the initial crowds, and I think they were a little bit larger when you first started, but we have a large CHP and other police presence on the 15 on the lanes of that right now, where traffic is completely shut off on that overpass that's over Jackson in out in East County, and right now it looks like things are calming down.
Okay, yes, I do have an update. Our desk here at News 8 said a viewer just called in and said that there are people on Memorial and La Mesa by the park with bats and sticks. So we were saying that this was a peaceful protest, but we're hearing reports that some areas have turned violent with people holding bats and sticks. Not sure if anybody has been assaulted, but those are reports from people who are calling into our newsroom. And Heather Hope, who is live on the scene, says now it has turned into more of a block party. People in cars are blasting music. College students are taking protest selfies, and again, we want to make sure that you know that these reports of violence are unverified. These are reports that we're hearing into our newsroom. Protesters all in so Heather Hope is on the scene. She is hearing lots of yelling now and chanting. Police officers are on the roof in full riot gear. They're on the roof of some buildings and cars. And again, Heather says that people have turned this into a social gathering, a party. This is video from earlier. You could see how dense the crowd was. Thousands of people. You could barely even see the street at this point because they were so densely packed together. Since then, the protest has thinned out a little bit. And at this point, you know, this is near Grossmont Center, so people are in the parking lot. Heather Hope says people are in their cars blasting music. A lot of people are filming this, taking pictures. Daryl and Monique are also on the scene. They will be giving us as much info as we can possibly gather from them. Again, we just want to verify that there has been some reports that people are on Memorial and La Mesa by the park with bats and sticks, but that report of violence is unverified. We're just hearing this from callers who are calling in. Of course, we're trying to bring you the best information from here in the studio. We do have several crews out there witnessing this on the ground. They're relaying as much information as they possibly can to us. So hang in here with us as we try and get as much information and paint clear of a picture as we can for you out there. Again, this started at 2 o'clock, and from what we can see, this protest has dwindled in size. It was thousands were packed on the freeway. You could barely see the roadway earlier, and it now looks like some are sitting on the road, standing their ground, and not sure how long they're going to stay there, but this could go on for quite some time. Another protest is scheduled in El Cajon starting any minute now. It's supposed to start at 5 o'clock. We're hearing reports of that. So we will keep you posted on another protest getting planned to start here any minute now. You also see another vantage point from Center Street Bridge. This is near the Grossmont Shopping Center, and you could see people walking off the freeway, and you could see some cars on the roads. It looks like that is the side street to the shopping center, and people are gathered in that parking lot now. This is where our Heather Hope is, and she is trying to relay as much information as she can at this point.
So we're being told they're outside of La Mesa Police Department. Am I getting that correct there, Alicia?
It started outside of the La Mesa Police Headquarters around 2 o'clock this afternoon, and it has moved down the 8 freeway to the Grossmont Center, where police have formed a line to get them off the freeway and onto the side streets, and as you could see, into the shopping center, into the parking lots where it is safer for everybody.
Right now we're looking at a shot overhead though at Mesa Police Department headquarters. You can see overhead, this may be where we saw some of the people on the freeway leaving too. This seems to be a larger gathering. We had a decent number of people on Interstate 8 stopping traffic, but it seems like this crowd's a little bit bigger than what we just saw, and it seems to be growing at the time. This is University and Baltimore is basically where that is, and that's something I'm going to zoom in on here in a moment. I think I can show you that right now. This is where that would be in this part of town. It is close to Interstate 8. University and Baltimore is where the police department is. And just giving you a little bit of an idea for people, this is Interstate 8 just to the north of it. This is Spring Street right here, so you get a little bit of an idea where it's at. But let's go live to that picture again, because that's a big crowd gathering outside the police department. This has been a peaceful protest so far. Demonstrations over racial injustice. As Alicia mentioned, we had an incident at a trolley station earlier this week, a confrontation between a young black man and a police officer. Not sure what exactly led up to that. It is being investigated by an outside investigator. The city of La Mesa acted quickly on that. But we're not sure what led up to it, but we do know that it's being investigated, trying to figure out what exactly happened. It was an aggressive, uncomfortable encounter. Fortunately, it didn't lead to violence, but we know some people in the community were upset about that. We saw a peaceful demonstration about it last night, and we're seeing a lot of people out today, but we can't ignore the larger picture going on in the United States right now, triggered by George Floyd's death, caught on camera earlier this week, and has led to just an explosion of unrest, social unrest around the country. In San Diego, we've seen peaceful protests, some smaller ones earlier in this week. And again, this looks like a large, peaceful crowd gathering outside of La Mesa Police Department. And again, no coincidence, because La Mesa Police Department had an incident involving a young black man earlier this week. But the city did act quickly, appointing an outside investigator to figure out what exactly happened. And that officer is on administrative leave in the meantime.
Yeah, so this protest started in front of La Mesa Police Headquarters, and it looks like some of the protesters have made their way back to police headquarters because law enforcement was getting them off the freeway. So we saw a lot of them turn around, so it's possible that a lot of them just went back to police headquarters because the crowd on the freeway has thinned out dramatically, and the crowd here in front of police headquarters has grown significantly. So Heather Hope is on the ground. She says there are people with protesters holding up signs. We cannot read those signs on air. Some of them have expletives, but as you could see, this one, it says Black Lives Matter. So people are protesting here for a number of reasons. Again, police brutality, the controversial arrest of a young black man at the Grossmont Trolley Center on Wednesday, and then of course the death of Minneapolis man George Floyd earlier this week as well, in the custody of police. So you see on your right-hand side of the screen, this is the freeway where the protest was stopped at Center Street Bridge. And then on the left-hand side, that is police headquarters in La Mesa, where the protest started, and it looks like is going back. So it's starting and ending there from what we've seen here live on air. And we're also hearing that another protest in El Cajon is happening any second now at 5 o'clock. Carlo?
Yes, so we have at least one group gathered on the 15. Our helicopter pulled away from the situation that we saw a little bit earlier, closer to Jackson Drive, with people gathered stopping traffic there. This group is more just on the side of the road, but again, this is a situation that's stopping traffic on Interstate 8. That crowd outside of the La Mesa Police Department keeps growing. We see officers holding a line with batons in their hand. We see an officer, a couple of them at least, I see there, holding on pepper ball guns. They're guns that shoot out balls of pepper spray or condensed pepper spray that will be shot at people if things get out of hand. It essentially is small pellets of tear gas that they use to disperse crowds. There's a couple of officers with that, a line of officers with batons, and a growing crowd just outside of that. I do believe we have a crew headed to the general area, but we're going to step aside for a moment.
Summer vacation isn't canceled, just relocated. Let Holland RV's experienced sales staff help you find the best fit for your next adventure. New or pre-owned gas or diesel RV or towable. Holland has an extensive inventory of top-selling brands. Holland RV, San Marcos, and Santee.
Murray Lampert has been a family business in San Diego for 45 years.
Okay, stand by.
Probably edit the video, but I got the phone.
Then the group started to march, making their way onto Interstate 8. Officers set up a small barricade, but the protesters rather pushed through the barricade they made at the entrance and got on to Interstate 8. Right now, this is a live look.
The demonstration comes just days after a video went viral of a young black man who is being detained by a white officer at the Grossmont Trolley Center. And it comes amid nationwide protest over the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man killed by Minneapolis police. Let's check in with News 8's Monique Grego. She's live near where the group has confronted police on the freeway. Monique?
Yes, right now we are in the Red Lobster parking lot across from the Grossmont Shopping Center. You can see there are a lot of people that were here just to kind of see what was going on, and a lot more police officers have showed up since we arrived. Now this is where that line was, if you saw, if you were watching our feed online. Police had a large police presence. The protesters came right up to the line. They were maybe, 10 feet away from each other. This was really the epicenter of what could have been a really volatile situation up until, I would say, 5 or 6 minutes ago. We slowly saw the protesters start backing away from the officers as more officers came to the area. But you can see there are choppers in the air. People are here kind of just seeing what's going on. I really can't get a feel for the situation, if people are here in support or if people are here just kind of to see what's going on. But on our way over here, obviously streets are backed up because roads are closed. The freeway is shut down. But when you look at the freeway right here, you can see this was a very serious situation. Officers remain lined up from CHP. Protesters became very close. But as you guys have already said, one time they did break through the line. Officers did not confront anyone. Nothing happened. There were no altercations. So far, we haven't heard of any major altercations, but things did get very intense out here. From where we're at right now, police are continuing to hold the line. More people are coming, and really have to say, in situations like this, they are very fluid. I am not sure. We saw people on the way over here when the streets were getting closed coming with more signs. I'm not sure if they were walking away, because we know that this was a very large group that kind of dispersed into several small groups. So we weren't sure if more people were coming to this area or if these are people that were actually leaving the protest. But again, as of right now, this is the 8 West, and the large group of protesters that was here was kind of on the confrontation line with police has since started heading away from this area. I believe you guys said they may be headed back to the Mesa Police Department. But right now, it seems that we at least avoided a major situation, as things did become very contentious. People here were telling us what they saw. They really kind of got nervous for a while that something was really going to happen, because police, with their lineup and the SWAT and the protesters so close, people did get an intense situation. And right now we may have avoided that with them walking away. But again, this has created a major distraction on the streets. Streets in this area are closed down. You can see, I think, off in the distance, I'm sure if my photographer Daryl is down there, He should be giving you a shot of them now walking away. Again, we are right in the parking lot of the Red Lobster. There's a Lamps Plus here just across from the Grossmont Shopping Center. So again, this seems to be a situation that has left this area. But on the other end, I can see more cop lights. So you guys may have a better view of that from the chopper. But again, we are here and just kind of continuing to monitor the situation. But you can see a lot of people out here just in the parking lot with their cell phones, trying to see what's going on, trying to get a gather on the situation. But again, as of now, from what we saw there, besides the protesters breaking through the line at one point, there wasn't a major confrontation. They backed off and have now headed the opposite direction. So again, we're going to continue monitoring the situation and maybe have to move locations. We did check out a few areas to see what we could see, so we may have to move locations for now, but we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio for now.
Thanks, Monique. Let's go live now to News 8's Heather Hope. She's been out there since the protest began. She's live at the eastbound Interstate 8 ramp at Baltimore Drive to tell us about the situation there. Heather?
Yeah, some protesters have moved from there back to in front of the Mesa Police Department. We're right outside where a large group has been staged in front of the police department. Graffiti along the La Mesa City Police Department with some signs saying George Floyd, others not flattering to the police. You see a large slew of signs as this huge group out here, some with the protest signs, some with t-shirts on, many people wearing masks, not a lot of people social distancing at all. Their rally cry is justice for George Floyd there in Minnesota, as well as the issue that took place here in La Mesa on Wednesday concerning Amari Johnson. So people out here saying their rally cry is for justice and they are against police brutality. So the group has moved up the freeway back here to the police department. People are in their cars with music, many people just staging right in front with their posters and their signs. Sometimes there's chanting. We'll see police on top of the roof of La Mesa PD at times. At one point, the group scattered and ran because they heard some pops, but so far no active scenes of violence, just graffiti, staging, and a lot of dialogue going out here in front of the La Mesa Police Department. Carlo?
Thanks, Heather. Okay, as you said, this seemed to have started and seems to have spread out from and returned to the La Mesa Police Department, which is right here at University Avenue and Baltimore Drive in La Mesa. Crowds are gathering, a good-sized crowd. Now, they've spread out over time. We still have some of those crowds. On the freeway. You can see it's just a couple of blocks to the north. It's a short walk for the freeway from here at the police department. You can go a couple of ways to get on Interstate 8. There's on-ramps here, there's off-ramps here. There's a few different routes for them to get onto it. We also saw people basically climbing on up the embankments from overpasses to get access to the freeway that way, not on the on-ramps or the off-ramps at all. So we have a larger presence that was on the freeway on Interstate 8 a little bit earlier, where our largest crowd had gathered, was about here just before the split into Jackson and into the 125. That seemed to disperse, and it looked like the people were making their way back, working their way west on Interstate 8 and both sides of the road, getting off again, heading down to University Avenue and the La Mesa Police Department. So that's where the largest crowd is gathering right now. A little bit south of Interstate 8, just off Baltimore Drive and University Avenue, where we just heard from Monique Griego on the ground there. Large protest. What we've seen so far has been peaceful. We haven't seen any incidents of violence at this moment. We're keeping our ears and eyes out to look for anything that happens. Hopefully this does not escalate. Police are prepared for it if they do. We saw a large presence of police in front of the La Mesa Police Department with helmets on, with billy clubs out. We saw some of them with the air guns that they use to shoot the pepper balls. So it's a tense situation. It could escalate, but so far people are keeping their heads, and this is a protest. Alicia, I understand you have some new information at this point.
Yeah, so we want to take you back to video from when this started all around 3:30. This is how it began. Protesters broke onto the freeway right around 3:30. A large group was able to push through a fairly small police barricade, as you see right there. There's about 2 police cars. That group clearly outnumbered law enforcement at this point at 3:30. This is video from when it first started. So they pushed through that small police barricade and gained access to the freeway, the 8 freeway going westbound. They were all on foot. Things got pretty contentious, but fortunately no major altercations. And that large group dispersed into several small groups on and off the 8 West. We saw many walk back to police headquarters in La Mesa at University Avenue and Baltimore Drive when they were met with a larger police barricade near the Grossmont Center. As you can imagine, law enforcement did not want that protest to continue on the freeway, so they formed a much larger barricade that protesters were not able to break through. And it looked like a lot of them turned around and they walked back to police headquarters in La Mesa. And this is where it all started, at police headquarters at University and Baltimore. And this protest comes days after that viral arrest video of a young black man who was detained at the Grossmont Trolley Center by an officer after a confrontation where you could see the police officer shoving that man several times, and that altercation was all caught on camera. Just a day later, La Mesa Police announced that that police officer has been put, I should say, on administrative leave pending an investigation. This week has been filled with unrest across the country, as we are seeing everywhere. Now let's send it back to Carlo.
All right, we have some video, I understand, from on the ground near Center Street, just off Interstate 8, where this occurred earlier, where people were marching. Again, you saw large groups. We have not seen any violence yet, and we do want to just emphasize to people, this has not escalated as far as what we've seen and know at this moment. We also want to advise people, don't go in that direction if you don't need to. We don't need more vehicles in the area. We don't need more people in the area. Law enforcement has its hands full with what is, at this point, a peaceful demonstration. Hopefully we can keep it that way. But this is from videographer Kenny McGregor, who's on the ground near Center Street and Spring Street, I think, looking at Interstate 8. This is as the first crowd earlier was walking along, stopping traffic on Interstate 8. Again, a lot of those people that were on the freeway have moved back off and gone back to the La Mesa Police Department. And we did have a shot from our helicopter earlier. I think we're trying to get that again, but Alicia's got some new information.
Yeah, our News 8's Monique Grego is on the ground. She has the protesters dispersing off the freeway going back to La Mesa Police Headquarters. Monique, what do you see at this hour?
Yeah, and Alicia, again, we are right now we're at the Red Lobster parking lot across from the Grossmont Shopping Center. And just, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes ago, this really was the epicenter of where things may have been getting to get a little more increased here. You can see there's a lot of people in the parking lot who came just to see what was happening. That is the large police line, the second police line that was developed after protesters broke through the first police line. Again, as Carlo has made very clear, there wasn't any violence. Nothing has peaked to that level, but officers did line up in their SWAT gear. They did come face to face with the protesters. Obviously, we were getting a chopper shot and we have to keep our distance as well. So we couldn't hear exactly what was going on, but we did talk to people who said it did get contentious at some points and they were worried that some violence may happen. But again, no violence occurred at this location. The cop cars were actually a little bit further this way, probably about 5 minutes ago, but they have since progressed on the 8 West. So I think they're just kind of following the situation. The protesters are no longer in our eyesight. Again, they headed, I believe we have said, maybe to the La Mesa Police Headquarters again, where another large group that Heather Hope has been monitoring has gathered. But again, here, it seems that the large group has dispersed. Many people who were here watching everything are also leaving as well. But police remain here in their police line, and the 8 West remains closed to traffic. Of course, that's going to create problems on these outlying streets. So if you don't want to be involved in that, you should definitely avoid this area. But for now, what we can say is, when things got very heated and they were face to face with the officers, the line seemed to hold and protesters seemed to go back, and they headed the other way, and there was no violence. I know that Heather Hope is experiencing some different things over there at the police headquarters, but as for here, we saw that things dispersed in a not a violent manner, and police are continuing to hold their line. But again, we of course may change locations, but for here monitoring the situation, it seems that things have left this area. Again, we are in the Red Lobster parking lot across from the Grossmont Shopping Center. So we'll send it back to you guys in the studio for now.
All right, Monique, thank you. Let's send you to another vantage point. Our photographer, Kenny McGregor, is shooting this where you could see a group of protesters has broken off from the main group at La Mesa Police Headquarters, and many of them are sitting on the freeway at this point. This is on the I-8 freeway in the westbound direction. Many of them are sitting, refusing to leave and refusing to get off the freeway. This protest dispersed into several small groups for when it started around 2 o'clock this afternoon. Protesters did break on this freeway around 3:30, and they were able to push through a large barricade of police officers and gain access to the freeway on foot. So this has been going on for more than 3 hours now. Many people have made their way back to police headquarters in La Mesa, and some of them are staying on the freeway. Some of them are standing their ground, sitting on the freeway, holding up signs. They are not leaving just yet. We are also hearing of another protest in San Diego. We haven't heard about this one happening in El Cajon just yet. The main protest in San Diego right now is the one happening here in La Mesa. This is right near the Grossmont Center. You might be familiar with the area. Red Lobster is in that parking lot where many of the protesters have been dispersed. Some people are waiting in their cars. They're gathering in small groups. But again, we have crews on the ground, and we're going to try and bring you the eyes on the scene as soon as we possibly can.
So you may be wondering, why is this happening in La Mesa? We know that we've seen just a flurry of riots and protests. Not all riots, more protests spread out across the country. A lot of social unrest this week, triggered by the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis that was caught on camera, where he was choked to death in a video that was very graphic and very upsetting to many people. It took a couple of days before the officer involved in that was arrested, and a lot has broken out since then. A lot of violence has happened across the country. So far, not here, but this is happening in La Mesa most likely because earlier this week we had an incident that was caught on camera here between a young black man and a white police officer that was caught on camera. We don't know exactly what led up to it. It was aggressive, it was angry, but it wasn't necessarily violent. But the officer involved has been put on administrative leave, and investigation into that is underway. The young man was arrested for resisting arrest. Right now, again, we said this is focused on La Mesa and the La Mesa Police Department, and that's where we find Heather Hope. This was the main site for organizing this protest today. Heather?
Yes, this is where the protest began about 2 p.m. We've been out here since 1:30, and you can see the majority of the group just staged right in the parking lot for La Mesa PD, as well as on the steps right in front of the front doors. There is graffiti spray painted along the police department, some signs saying George Floyd, others not flattering messages to the police officers as people have their signs held up. Many people just sitting in their cars, some just waiting outside, large groups walking around. At times we hear chants, no justice, no peace, other messages.
Got a guy behind the cop now.
As this group has moved up toward the freeway, they've walked back down, and this is where they've been at least for the last 20 minutes, just staged out here with their signs, waiting for their next thing to do, all in front of La Mesa PD. I'll send it back to you, Carlo and Alicia.
All right, Heather, thanks. Peaceful there, but we're seeing things start to get a little more tense and aggressive on the Interstate 8 freeway. This is a live look where we have police out there, but we have a large crowd gathering, a growing crowd gathering, and it looks like they're around a police cruiser. We can see, if you look kind of to the right center of your screen, you see officers. I'm not sure which agency. They have helmets on. They're in dark uniforms. Kenny, you've got a good view on this. Kenny McGregor, our chief photographer. What are we looking at? What direction is this, and what's going on?
All right, so you're looking at the center median right now at 8. I'm pointed going eastbound. I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to zoom out here. I'm on the Center Street Bridge. Everybody looks to be underneath this other bridge, which I believe connects to El Cajon Boulevard. There were probably about 20 protesters, and now I would say there's probably several hundreds. They've surrounded the few officers that are here. I personally, I'm a little worried for them right now because there's no other officers coming, and they are now completely surrounded them all the way around. I think law enforcement is trying to make its way out here, but we've seen everything from graffiti being spray painted on the bridge itself, to cones being thrown, to some sort of fireworks also being thrown. And I apologize for the shot here that's got the vulgar language, I'm going to try and tilt down. Yeah, this is an ugly situation right now, at least on the freeway, and it's completely stopped the freeway in both directions, eastbound and westbound on the 8 freeway. Now, I'm going to pull back a little bit more so you can kind of get an idea again where we are. Bear with me as I cycle through here. This is the crowd of people. They all started from this direction here, which would have been the westbound corner, and they had come from this bridge here up above, and you can see a ton of them still up there on the bridge looking down. They were throwing cones down at the officers, and then they started making their way and started pushing and encroaching on the officers. Now they've surrounded the officers, and I'd say there's probably a dozen officers there right now. Still looking and waiting for some more backup. Have not seen any yet. I have a feeling they can't get on the freeway because it's completely jam-packed all the way around us right now.
And Kenny, I just wanted to ask you, so earlier we saw that officers were blocking the freeway, but they were also blocking off-ramps. So it looks like this tactic, you had a good illustration there. Just off the bridge, they were basically just going down the embankment through the foliage that's there and walking down the embankment to get onto the freeway rather than using an on-ramp or an off-ramp to get on. Is that right?
Yeah, 100% correct. We watched them again from up above here on this bridge. You can see several of the demonstrators or protesters up above. But yeah, you're correct. They did come down on the backside of here and then make their way here. And all of a sudden they started to encroach, and all the officers were at this point here, but they've now pushed them all the way to the center divide. And again, I apologize. There's probably some signs in the background that I can't really get around, but I'm going to try and zoom in maybe to not show that, but some vulgar language here.
Unfortunately,
I apologize for it, but
they're part of the scene, Kenny. Do you have an estimate of how many officers were on the ground? They've retreated. They've got into a tight formation there. We're not seeing any kind of physical contact at this point. Nothing's being thrown either. But how many officers do you think were there holding the line before they basically got engulfed by this crowd?
Well, I haven't seen any officers of new yet come, but I would say there was at least a dozen there, and that's what they are. They're still holding their ground. I mean, they're doing a heck of a job just standing there and not, being combative. We did see some pushing and shoving about a couple minutes ago, but again, right now, I'd say probably about a dozen, Carlo, maybe 15. Still have not seen any other officers make their way onto the freeway. I'm not sure why, or if maybe the protesters are blocking the entrances to not allow them to. But again, these officers are doing a heck of a job just, keeping their ground, not being violent. I think they're taking probably every expletive as can be thrown at them right now down there. I mean, unfortunately, I can't hear it, but I'm also at a safe distance, and I feel very safe from up here as well, too.
And
but I really, really feel for these officers down there.
It seems like right now, let's keep our fingers crossed that this doesn't turn into something really ugly. Right now, it's a standoff. Right. But just one more factor of this is in the middle of a freeway. Do you have any angle or any perspective on just how many cars are backed up? And we want to tell our viewers, if you had any business that took you on Interstate 8 today in East County, you don't today. It's closed. Stay home. There's no reason to go in that direction. It's just going to add to the problems out there.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to give you just a wide shot there to show you. It is completely shut down. And again, we are, if it gives you a better explainer where I am, I'm just west of the Jackson Street exit looking eastbound towards the freeway. And we just had a car of people clapping and shouting and, again, shouting some expletives. So again, I apologize. But yeah, I'm looking again eastbound towards the Jackson Street off-ramp. And again, still no new officers whatsoever. It's a little troublesome that they haven't called more. Maybe it's a tactic. I don't know.
Kenny, can you hear me? We saw some small plumes of smoke on the freeway. Any idea what those could have been?
I have not seen that whatsoever. I haven't seen any smoke at this point.
Maybe small fireworks that they've been lighting on the freeway?
Yes. There were some small fireworks. They sounded like some kind of sparkler crackers, but they were throwing them towards the officers. To kind of give you an idea around here, there's the A1 storage out here in La Mesa, and I'm going to come across this bridge where the rest of us are here. But let me take you back into the action again.
You are on Center Street Bridge that connects to El Cajon Boulevard, and the protesters are there at the center median west of Jackson Street exit, and then there's another bridge right in front of you. And it looks like some protesters are standing on top of that bridge as well, and maybe have thrown some traffic cones down on the group below.
There's some cheering going on. I'm not sure what's going on, guys. I think they're pushing the officers across. Stand by. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more for you here. They're really starting to get excited. They've pushed the officers. The officers are walking away. Maybe, again, this is the tactic. They're leaving.
Yeah, you can see them in a file walking off.
Exiting the freeway.
That's right. We have not seen any backup show up. So maybe they're just outnumbered and they're retreating.
I would say that's a good call right now.
So it looks like that large crowd has
on the bridge here.
Essentially taken over the 8 freeway, as you said, just to the east of the Center Street Bridge, just a little bit before the Jackson Street exit. This is one of 2 large gatherings in La Mesa right now. The other is at the La Mesa Police Department. Again, we mentioned it earlier. There was an incident involving a La Mesa police officer earlier this week, which is likely the reason that these protests started in La Mesa today.
We have some law enforcement finally trying to make their way out here. If you can hear me, guys.
I can.
Yes.
See if I can find them for you. I heard 2 sirens. They were trying to come down. I don't know if they've ever made it. I lost sight of them right now. But yeah, as we said earlier, they've pushed those officers completely down off this freeway.
And since those officers have retreated, it appears that the group has grown in size in just a matter of minutes.
Let's see if we can get around there. Yes.
Both on the freeway and above it.
Yeah, correct. You are correct. They were walking up and down that bridge itself for the longest time, and as we explained with Carlo, they made their way off that bridge and down onto the freeway itself. At some point, maybe we can reposition ourselves and give you another angle of what's going on the other side of that bridge. But at the moment, they have taken over the whole westbound lane, and I don't see any officers anymore in sight. Again, this might be a tactic that's going to work in their favor.
Yeah, so this is one of the group of protesters that you see here on the 8 freeway in La Mesa. This is very close to El Cajon. We were hearing reports of another protest starting in El Cajon at 5 o'clock. So this very well could be it. There is another protest in front of the La Mesa Police Headquarters not too far away at University in Baltimore. So this scene, at first, this group was very small in the center median, and they outnumbered about a dozen police officers that were standing their ground. It remained peaceful. No violence broke out, and then we saw those officers retreat, and since then the group has grown in size, and you're looking at protesters walking on the bridge.
Yeah, these are some of the protesters that might have been down below, the stragglers, but I'll take you right back down again just to kind of give you an eye of still what's going on this bridge, and I apologize for the pan there. But from my vantage point on this side of the freeway, it looks like it's starting to dissipate a little bit. But I have a feeling that beyond this bridge, there are still more of the protesters on the freeway. They are still hanging out.
Yeah, they are. We've seen a huge protest break out into small groups of protesters, and it looks like this group is now moving because the numbers have dramatically decreased from just a few minutes ago. So people are moving around. We're following them as they go, but it looks like it's growing and it's spreading out between here, Grossmont Center, and the La Mesa Police Headquarters, Kenny.
That's correct. Yeah, I have some other crews that I've actually asked to position and see if they can go on the other side of this bridge and bring you a different shot to see what's going on that side. So hopefully we'll have that for you soon enough. But again, they're just hanging out on the freeway, as we can see.
Yeah, and for our viewers,
no one's stopping them.
For our viewers who are joining us just recently, this is just one part of a protest. It's hard to get a handle on how many people are actually involved. There's a very large group outside of the La Mesa Police Department right now. Then there's this group that is on Interstate 8, and we see what looks like a mini bike on there. But we also have groups that are walking around between the two, so it's hard to get an idea of what this really is as far as the scale of it at this point. Again, the protests have been peaceful to this point from what we've seen and heard. We are listening if it changes, but so far these have been peaceful protests with protesters here, demonstrators here, taking over Interstate 8, but they did it without any blows, without any weapons, without any violence. It was just a numbers game. They had way more people than the officers did, and officers retreated. We're going to take a little break. We're going to reset and get in touch with our field crews, take a little break, and be back in a moment.
News 8 is sponsored by Lawrence Contemporary.
On the other side to see what's going on over there, maybe get you a shot. Okay, will somebody reach out? Guys, will somebody reach out to Julio? Okay, we got people laying in the road now, guys, FYI, or sitting in the road. I'm gonna get you that here. Stand by. There you go. Yeah, I got you. Yep. Hang on, 2 people talking. Okay, Booth is talking to me, guys. Hang on. Yes, I got you. Is this Tyler? Okay, Tyler. Yeah, I got you. Hang on, Tyler's talking to me, guys. Stand by. Tyler's talking.
We've seen signs about that. There was also an incident in La Mesa earlier this week.
There was, and let's bring you video from when this protest first started around 2 o'clock this afternoon. This is in front of La Mesa Police Headquarters at University and Baltimore. And then around 3:30 this afternoon, a large group of protesters were able to push through a police line and move on to the 8 freeway. Police diverted that group towards Jackson Drive off the freeway. You see here that group around 3:30 pushing through a small police barricade to get onto the 8 freeway. So again, officers were able to divert that group off of the freeway, hold them on the freeway, I should say, at Jackson Drive, and then they formed a stronger, more tight-knit line at Grossmont and Jackson Drive, right near Grossmont Center, and police officers, you see, held the protesters there and diverted them off the freeway to the shopping center in the area, Grossmont, or I should say College College Avenue exit is the closest exit. Lake Murray is another close exit, to put things in perspective for you. And again, this protest locally has a lot to do with the local arrest, the local controversial arrest of a young man at the Grossmont Trolley Center. And that confrontation was caught on camera. La Mesa Police announced that police officer involved in the arrest, where there was pushing and shoving going on, has been placed on administrative leave, and an investigation is pending. And again, this whole week has been filled with unrest across the country, from all the way to Minneapolis, where George Floyd died in the custody of a police officer after a police officer was kneeling on his neck for nearly 9 minutes, and you could hear him say, "I can't breathe," until unfortunately he died. And that Minneapolis police officer has been charged with third-degree murder. And so protests have been going on in Minneapolis. Today's the third straight day, and we've seen protests spread throughout the country, LA, and now San Diego. And we're seeing people hold up signs saying Black Lives Matter. And we're also seeing people chant, "No justice, no peace." We have 2 protests going on right now, one in front of La Mesa Police Headquarters, and there's another protest near Center Street Bridge that connects El Cajon. People are on the freeway. Not everybody has left the freeway yet. Some people are sitting there, some people are standing, some people are on the side streets sitting in their cars, some people are walking across the bridges. So this protest has grown to thousands and has broken up into smaller groups of protesters.
We don't have a real idea exactly where the big groups are now, or where all the groups are. We do know that we have 2 basic ones, one near Center Street on Interstate 8, where the large crowd basically chased away police. It wasn't violent, but there were way more protesters. Officers retreated and then eventually walked off Interstate 8, and a large group basically has taken over the Interstate 8 just near the Center Street Bridge, just a little bit to the east of that. I believe we have somebody that we wanted to go to live right now. If you could repeat that to me, Tyler. We have Kenny McGregor, our chief photographer, and this is a live look at what's going on in the scene right now. Kenny, can you tell us what's going on?
Yeah, I just saw this guy here on this bicycle. I figured I'd give you a shot. He's having the whole freeway to himself, and let me kind of pull back here. Kind of an interesting juxtaposition to this whole thing. You never find a bike lane, right? Well, apparently he found the whole freeway today. He's going to make himself over the middle. But let me take you to the actual protesters that are still sitting on the bridge itself. And they're here. We've got I'd say probably about a half dozen or so. And there's just a few of them here in front that are blocking. And all throughout the freeway, from my vantage point, I can see them sitting and blocking that freeway. The majority of the crowd has gone towards the eastbound area, or eastbound side of 8 Freeway past Jackson. I think I have another crew over there who's going to show you another vantage point from there. But right now, the freeway is still shut down, just westbound of Jackson. This, again, we were looking at the westbound lane of Interstate 8. I'm going to pull back a little bit and kind of show you what's going on here. We still have people walking over the bridge itself. Some of the protesters, and I'll kind of show you. And this is where they all started. And when I got here, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of them walking over this bridge, came back down and made their way on the freeway from this corner right here. There were about a dozen officers on that freeway at the time, and it turned into hundreds of people who pushed them off the freeway. Here comes a skateboarder now. Again, this has turned into a thoroughfare for any pedestrian right now, but the freeway is completely shut off.
All right, Kenny, it's definitely a surreal, that picture kind of says it all right now, right?
Yeah, that's what, I've never seen this, and as you and I talk all the time, Carla, we've been doing this for decades. I've never seen anything like this.
So we've seen people ride their bikes on the freeway, skateboard on the freeway. Meanwhile, traffic has stopped both directions. So if we had cameras farther out, I'm sure we would see a long line of cars backed up as traffic has come to a halt. And it's been like this for several hours now. Earlier, when we were talking to you, Kenny, we saw a smaller group of protesters. They have since moved on. Do you know where they went?
From what I can tell you, they went eastbound again on the westbound lanes. So somewhere out in this distance they went. You can see the signs above that we're looking at the eastbound 8 near the La Mesa and Jackson. But they've moved on, but there's still these stragglers holding ground here. There is one pan across here to show you. There's that one CHP officer just at bay, standing back, but there are no more other law enforcement here that I can see from my vantage point. And again, you have just a few protesters still here. There's a couple new people coming on now. Not sure what they're about to do. And we have one laying over there in the distance, if you can see it, actually laying down on the freeway, the top of the screen there. But they have it all to themselves. Again, there are no law enforcement here other than that one highway patrol. And I can only assume that the crowd that we saw earlier, that were probably close to 1,000 people, had moved east. So I'm hoping to have one of our other photographers give you another vantage point of where they went at this time. I can see in the distance, and just kind of see if I can pick this out or not from you. There are officers in this way far in this distance here, and I think that's where they went. And I'll try and zoom in a little bit. But that's at that exit 13B. Which is near Jackson right there. So that's way deep in the distance. That looks like where those officers went because I can see the helmets that they have on. But at my vantage point, again, we're looking at just a couple that are just left here still on the freeway.
Kenny, what's the road you're looking at right now? Is that Center Street in front of you that we're looking at? The street that people are walking up?
I believe that's the El Cajon Bridge, or a bridge that leads into El Cajon Boulevard.
No, right in front of you.
The side street.
Oh, we're looking at
about this side over here.
I apologize, Kenny. We're looking at a picture from a different location. We have Julio's picture up right now. Julio Ramirez, another one of our videographers, picture up while we're talking to you. I didn't know if you had a second, if DeGero out there, which is technical talk, but we're looking at a different image right now, so I'm trying to figure out where that image is coming from. I apologize for confusing you there. He's a little bit further down the freeway.
Yeah, it looks like he is on a side street.
He's on El Cajon Boulevard right now.
Okay.
And
so Kenny was on
where the majority of the protesters are.
All right, so Kenny was on top of Center Street Bridge that connects to El Cajon Boulevard, and the shot you're looking at now is actually on El Cajon Boulevard. Okay, and here is that bridge shot again from Center Street Bridge, and you could see a lot of the protesters have moved on. We saw a group of protesters gathered at the center median right there, and about a dozen police officers retreat from that location. Nobody was being combative. We have not seen any violence break out. Those officers retreated, and shortly after, the group of protesters retreated as well. And it looks like many of them have moved to that side street, El Cajon Boulevard, and they could possibly be going back to another large protest that is happening right in front of La Mesa Police Headquarters, not too far away, within walking distance. So it looks like this one is pretty much over. We have a few stragglers sitting on the freeway, holding up a sign, not quite sure what their sign says, but we've seen signs that say Black Lives Matter, no justice, no peace. Again, people are angry about the controversial arrest of a young black man on Wednesday that happened at the trolley station at Grossmont. And that police officer has since been put on administrative leave.
Yeah, it's a very tight little area. We have the protest on the freeway, but we have it close to the police station. This isn't a far stretch. It's probably less than it's probably about a half mile from the furthest point on the freeway that we've seen protesters gathered to the police department in a straight line. It's not a large area that they're dispersed around. So going back and forth from the freeway to the police station is not improbable at all, and it seems to be kind of what has happened throughout the course of this. We're waiting to get you more aerials. Our chopper needed to get some fuel. That's understandable. They can't stay up there forever. We're trying to get you a few more live shots. Right now, though, again, it's pretty calm on Interstate 8, and people have been taken over. This is an aerial. Am I looking at a live shot? This is video from earlier.
This is when the protest began in front of Mesa Police Headquarters. That was around 2 o'clock, right around 2 o'clock, as you could see that huge sign that said Black Lives Matter. This started here. Everybody made their way on foot to the 8 freeway. They pushed through a small police barricade to get onto the freeway. And since then, you could see there are thousands of people densely packed together. Since then, this large group has dispersed into smaller protesting groups, and we've been trying to keep an eye on all of them. So it looks like people are walking on side streets, people are walking on the sidewalk, in the middle of the street, on the freeway, all around El Cajon in the East County, and again, this is video from earlier, so we are trying to get a live picture for you to show you what it looks like at the moment, but this is from earlier this afternoon.
We're going to go live now. We have a reporter who has made it on the ground again. Got another live shot up. Monique Griego is live just along Interstate 8, told just a little bit west of Jackson. Is that right, Monique?
Yes, earlier we were in the Red Lobster parking lot, and that's where that second line of police officers is kind of lined up. Obviously, this is a very fluid situation, so I'm not sure if some of those officers have made their way down here or if this is a second line. As we said, things have been changing, but you can see there is a large group of people. They're kind of just in a confrontation with officers, but not a violent one. I did hear some yelling and some going back. I don't know if it's back and forth or people just yelling, but the group, it's kind of changing as we speak. There seems to be more people coming up with signs, but also people leaving at the same time. And I know that we keep saying this over and over again, but nothing has turned violent. Driving around, the streets are obviously backed up because of the freeway being shut down, and there is definitely a lot of people out here just trying to see what's going on, see what's happening. We did see some graffiti on the freeway and things like that. People skateboarding down the freeway, but as of now it seems to be just a large group of protesters kind of making their presence known in front of the officers. At first the line of officers was a lot smaller, but then more came. Again, things have remained non-violent and people seem to be just making their voice heard. Officers obviously standing the line here, but again, a lot of people out here just waiting to see what happened. Some people thought down when you said we were just east of here that things were going to get pretty intense because the group was was larger than this. It seems to have gotten smaller, but again, they're standing there. So I think we avoided a situation at the last location where the line of officers was. Nothing turned violent, but again here, protesters kind of migrated west and again have stopped here. Officers have increased their presence and really just a lot of people out here on the side of the freeway waiting to see what happened. Again, some leaving, but some also coming. So I don't know if people are just watching this on TV or online and wanting to come down and make their presence heard. But again, this is a smaller group. This is a smaller group of protesters that dispersed from the other area. That was the second line. At one point, there was a first line where protesters broke through. Again, officers dispersed and nothing violent happened there. But they moved on closer to where the Red Lobster is. And now they have kind of migrated west again. We are just outside. We are just west of Jackson Street on the I-8. But again, the I-8 is closed. A lot of people out here. We do see more people coming. We have to be careful with our shot here because there is some profanity. By the way, photographer know that written on the side of the highway that we did see some graffiti. But again, if you look at our shot right now, you see people rolling in motorcycles and also people rolling in on bikes. So I'm not sure, this guy's on a unicycle bike and they're rolling in now. So I don't know if more people are going to be coming because they're watching this online or seeing this on TV. But again, as you guys said earlier, this was a large group that seemed to disperse into several other groups. Some went to PD headquarters. Hold on, I'm trying to listen in real quick, because you can hear some type of yelling, but again, we have to keep ourselves away from this right now, especially because of the pandemic going on, things like that. We have to keep ourselves safe as well. But I can hear some yelling or something going on. But again, right now we are just west of Jackson Street where the protesters who are on the freeway have migrated. But again, nothing so far violent has gone on. I just heard some clapping. But again, we are going to continue to monitor the situation and keep you posted on what happens. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio for now.
All right, Monique, and we have some more breaking news at La Mesa Police Headquarters, where we're hearing reports that things have turned violent over there.
Yeah, our crews are actually telling us that they're on the ground, and we're actually pulling them back right now, putting them in a safe position. We don't want them in the middle of any violence right now. We're being told, though, that they saw crowds attacking a armored vehicle, a police armored vehicle of some sort, throwing objects at it. I don't know if they were rocking it, hitting it with sticks, but we know there was some kind of confrontation that turned violent there with an armored vehicle. Our chopper, we're working on getting that back up so we can get you a scene. Again, that's closer to the La Mesa Police Department, which has been the focus of today's demonstration here locally. Of course, it's grown out of what's happening nationally this week.
It has, and we heard about the national headlines across the country where people are angry and upset over the death of an unarmed black man, George Floyd, in Minneapolis. And then here locally, people are angry over the controversial arrest of a man at the Grossmont Trolley Center by an officer who has since been placed on leave. But again, this protest started around 2 o'clock and has remained peaceful until right now, when we're hearing reports that violence has broken out right in front of the La Mesa Police Headquarters, where this protest started at 2 o'clock. An armored vehicle, we're hearing, is under attack. We pulled our ground crews out of that scene. As you can understand, it is not safe to be there. Again, this is not video of police headquarters. This is video from earlier today. We do not have video at police headquarters right now because, as you can understand, it is not safe for our ground crews to be there at the moment. Our chopper is fueling up, and we are going to try and get you some aerial shots of the violence happening in front of La Mesa Police Headquarters at the moment.
One bit of some just good information for people out there. There's no reason thought to travel to that area. Stay away for right now. It's a bad situation. You can't use Interstate 8 going either way. Even though that video was from earlier, right now Interstate 8 is pretty much blocked off by protesters who are on it in both directions right through La Mesa. So you need to avoid the area if at all possible. We don't want to make this worse. And again, what has been a day of primarily nonviolent protests, demonstrations, energetic demonstrations, forceful demonstrations even. But we're getting reports from our crews on the ground that at the La Mesa Police Department, they're turning violent right now. We're working on getting video from the scene. We did pull our crews back as a safety measure, but we want to get you an idea of what is going on there. I understand we're going to take a break. Are we going to take a break, Tyler? We're not going to take a break yet.
Okay, so we want to keep you looking at this video from earlier today. Again, we want to stress this is not live video. This is video from earlier today, right around 3:30 this afternoon, I would say, when protesters managed to break through a police barricade and enter the I-8 freeway going westbound on foot. Police officers were able to hold that large protest at the Grossmont Center at Grossmont and Jackson Drive, right near the Grossmont Center, and they were able to hold them there. So to put things in perspective for you, the closest exit to that scene right there is Lake Murray. College is the next exit. Our Monique Grego was in the parking lot of Red Lobster, so I know many of you are familiar with that area. And then from there, protesters were able to get off the freeway. Law enforcement was able to hold their line and get off the freeway. So again, we're going to toss to break, but we want to keep you updated that the protests that have started today in La Mesa have turned violent at police headquarters. We are working on an aerial picture for you, and we will bring that to you as soon as we can, but we're going to take a short break right now.
Hey, class of 2020, give yourselves a pat on the back. You deserve it for a job well done.
Jerome showrooms are now open, and we're offering incredible financing. You can purchase your furniture with no interest and make no payments for up to 90 days. Plus, Jerome's offers fast
and then we're still all over the place where we'll be having a shot, but they won't.
I'm Carlo Chiquetta. We've been covering protests in La Mesa all afternoon long.
Yeah, and I'm Alicia Summers. We want to send it now to our Heather Hope, who is live near La Mesa Police Headquarters, where the protest has turned violent. Heather?
Yeah, so directly in front of La Mesa PD, just to the front of me, the large crowd is staged there. There was that armored vehicle that you guys mentioned before, parked right here in the street, where some people got on top of. They were throwing water bottles at it. Now the chant is, "I can't breathe." You see some people are trying to get away in their cars, but the crowd holding their signs up. Some, you can see police officers staged some near the roof area. At one point when water bottles were thrown at them, officers then directed their guns toward the crowd, which caused some people to run. At that point, you can see graffiti spray painted all across the La Mesa PD department signs there. At some points, crowds will shout at the officers. They'll throw things. Crowds will scatter. You can hear the motorcycle right here. That's right in front of us. So people are basically in this area, in the parking lot, directly in front of La Mesa PD with their signs. The chant has been, "I can't breathe, no justice, no peace," for the longest. And as this crowd continues to gather, a woman has a microphone up there giving a rally cry. People are talking about coming together, but not knowing the best way to do it at this point. So we're here across the street from the police department as protesters continue to stage together with their signs, awaiting whatever their next move may be as they continue this on throughout this evening. Carlo and Alicia.
All right, Heather, I'm glad you are staying far enough away to remain safe. But just to recap for folks just tuning in, Heather Hope is live near La Mesa Police Headquarters, where a protest that began at around 2 o'clock today turned violent with people attacking an armored vehicle. Since then, that vehicle has left. We have not seen the vehicle yet. And as Heather mentioned, we saw officers on top of the roof at La Mesa PD pointing guns at protesters, which caused a lot of people to leave. And people are chanting, "I can't breathe."
Protests began again about 3 o'clock today, started at La Mesa Police Department. This is a live look. You can see hundreds of people on Interstate 8, strong police present there. California Highway Patrol trying to take back control of that area, large numbers of them. People moving from Interstate 8 to the La Mesa Police Department and back. Very fluid situation. We've been on all afternoon, but we are going to be taking a break in a moment. This isn't the only spot in the country facing very serious unrest today. There are protests that have turned very violent all around the country over the past few days, continuing into today. CBS Evening News is going to be coming up and dealing with that situation, to be sure.
So again, this protest began around 2, 3 o'clock this afternoon at La Mesa Police Headquarters. The protesters were able to push through a police barricade and gain access to the 8 freeway going west on foot. Things were contentious, nerves were high, and it turned violent. This is the armored car driving away. That armored car was under attack just a few minutes ago. This is when the protest became violent. The armored car being attacked is when the violence started. It looks like the car has since removed itself from the situation. We have not heard any reports of anybody getting hurt, which is the good news.
Yeah, a fair point someone brought up to me. We're saying violence. We don't have any reports of violence impact people to people. We haven't seen police hitting anyone. We haven't seen anybody hitting police. We haven't seen objects hitting police. We have an object that was hit, but things have escalated. It's not quite peaceful anymore. We are on the situation. We have crews there. We're going to have the chopper back up a little later. Again, we will be back here for News 8 at 6:30 after the CBS Evening News to cover this day in La Mesa specifically, where we've had these violent protests. Where we've had these protests that so far have been mostly peaceful.
Yeah, compared to other protests across the country,
Yes.
San Diego's protest has remained very calm and pretty much peaceful up until this point, where an armored car was attacked. Fortunately, it was not a person attacked. That armored car has since drove off, and we are going to get an update from this large protest out in La Mesa from our crews on the ground. But as you can understand, we want our crews to be as safe as possible as well.
And just one more time, stay off Interstate 8 in East County for the time being. It is closed. Don't go to that area. It is a trouble spot. We're going to step aside right now for the CBS.
Closed caption sponsored by ASI.
The protest tonight. Let's start with News 8's Shannon Handy, who is live outside of Mesa Police Headquarters, where tear gas was just deployed. Shannon?
Yeah, Alicia and Carla, we actually had to drive around the block because when that tear gas was deployed, it got in my eyes as well as my photographer, Scott Hall. We just running. We saw a huge cloud of smoke, and this was following an incident where we were standing there when an armored vehicle arrived and people started throwing things at that vehicle. They were throwing bottles, they were throwing paint. The vehicle, in fact, had some video. I'm going to flip the phone around. We pulled it up on our laptop. This is, just take a listen real quick. Okay, so we just pulled that up on our laptop for you guys, but that is what happened. The armored vehicles showed up during this protest, and within a few minutes, first I saw one bottle fly and then several, and then it just got out of control. There were lots of people throwing bottles, paint, and all sorts of other things at that armored vehicle. So again, just take a look at that video again. So at this point, the armored vehicle had to back away, and then 15 minutes after this incident, that's when the tear gas was deployed. We saw one girl actually fall on the ground right here. I asked if she was okay. She says she got hit by tear gas. She says it felt like she was suffocating. She said that she never expected this protest to turn violent in this way. So right now, people are kind of walking around. We don't know if the tear gas has stopped being deployed. We just kind of see people walking up and down the street. Some have signs on. Some have their signs and their masks on, and that's what's going on. Again, we had to drive away for our own safety, so we're going to try and get closer to the area to let you guys know what's going on. But of course, we're trying to do so safely and bring you all the latest information.
All right, Shannon, thank you. We want to bring in retired lieutenant from the San Diego Police Department, Ray Shea. Ray Shea, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Lieutenant, thank you so much for joining us today. So you've been watching our coverage all afternoon. You could see that things have turned violent. What is your take on the situation now and where police officers go from here?
Well, the police department had to take that action. It was absolutely the right thing to do. We've learned through many years of training throughout California, the nation, that when a crowd starts to become violent, for example, spray painting, throwing items, getting people injured, when you start having criminal acts, you have to take action. So Chief Vasquez and La Mesa PD did the absolute right thing.
All right, Lieutenant. I think Carla would like to ask a question.
Ray, good to hear from you. Full disclosure for people, I'm friends with Ray. We've talked about police tactics over the years. Ray, I want to point out something that our Brandon Lewis observed throughout the day. When police first encountered the protesters earlier, they didn't have anything in their hands. And Brandon said that that's something he's learned about, that the first stages of confrontation, you don't want to look threatening, and that they've slowly progressed with what they've had. Then they had their batons, then they've had masks. You try to start off low and not make things escalate, but it didn't help.
No, absolutely. And every officer out there wants a peaceful assembly. Every officer wants these people to be able to exercise their First Amendment rights. But when you start having criminal acts of violence, you have to take action because that's phase 4 of a crowd. And crowd dynamics, if he allowed that to continue, it escalates like what you saw in Minneapolis. If other people sitting at home can see that the police department are not taking action and they're not going to enforce the law, then anarchy prevails. And you have to have law enforcement officers that are going to be out there and do the job and protect life, protect property, and you'll continue to see arrests. The biggest point I make is do not go to more protests if you're going to be violent, because our police department, the sheriff's department, CHP, when violence occurs, they have to take action. They will not go to a command post. They do not wear shields. They are there to enforce and protect property and protect people, and that's what cops do.
We've seen this protest since it began at 2 o'clock in front of police headquarters, and it's going on 5 hours now, and they just deployed tear gas. And as you can see, the protesters outnumber law enforcement right now. So it's a very fine line on how to keep things as peaceful as possible. Earlier today, we saw a small group of protesters push to the center median of the 8 freeway, and then about a dozen officers retreated. Any idea why they retreated at that point?
Well, if you're in a position where you're being overrun, you don't have much choice. That you're going to have a confrontation, a physical confrontation. And sometimes you have to retreat, but I guarantee you there are additional resources available to form a firm line when they need to. And what was the level of criminal acts? That's something to consider. But once you start having the criminal acts, you have to take action. Otherwise, you'll see replicated here what's occurring in other cities across the country that aren't as well trained to law enforcement and know the proper protocols and the proper steps to take to prevent more violence, because if they don't take action now, it'll get much worse.
All right, Ray Shea, thank you for spending some time with us. A retired San Diego Police Lieutenant, 24 years of experience. We appreciate your insight.
All right, Lieutenant, thank you. Let's check in now with News 8's Monique Grego. She was live near Interstate 8. She is live in front or near La Mesa Police Headquarters with the very latest on this scene. Monique, how's it going out there? Kenny McGregor, our chief photographer.
Yeah, this is Kenny. That's okay.
You are near police headquarters in La Mesa right now, where we saw the armored vehicle drive away not too long ago. We saw tear gas deployed. We see windows broken now. What else is happening out there, Kenny?
Windows broken. Hang on a second here. So here's some more windows to the police department. This is La Mesa PD.
Okay. So that is the police building that we're looking at right now, Kenny. Are we seeing people go in the building?
Here you go, right here.
Yep.
All right, so we could see that some of the protesters spray painted on the side of that building, threw something through the window there. Earlier, we saw police officers on top of the roof shooting tear gas at people, and that tear gas, by the way, got into the eyes of one of our news crews who are out on the scene, so they're trying to remain as safe as possible. And the latest information we have, police officers have fired pepper balls into the crowd from the roof of the police station over there. And
Kenny, I think you're trying to, are we seeing kind of, is this where the heart of the conflict is right now? I see a large group there. We haven't seen that.
This is the standoff here.
What are they chanting?
I don't know. We're going to find out.
Kenny, there was pepper balls being shot earlier. I don't know if there's tear gas as well, but there doesn't seem to be any smoke or anything lingering in the air right now. Are you okay? Are you breathing clear?
Sorry, hard to hear. They're saying don't shoot.
Okay. No justice, no peace.
Right here, I'm going to show you.
It's probably difficult to hear from out there.
Because I don't want to get hit with anything.
So this is a standoff, Kenny. You say they are chanting no justice, no peace, and then at the police station you could see a bunch of police officers standing out front.
That is correct. So I would say there's probably several thousand people here standing off with the sheriff's department who's protecting the La Mesa PD right now.
And Kenny, we can tell our viewers,
they're shouting, chanting, don't shoot.
We can tell our viewers that those crowds were right up on the steps earlier until pepper balls were fired into the crowd. We had the pepper spray being dispersed. We saw smoke in the area. We know that something got into the eyes of our photographer and our reporter. It looks like the crowd is keeping their distance as not to provoke any more of that.
I'll be honest, I can still smell the remnants in the air right now. Of that tear gas. My eyes are getting a little teary, but it's not that bad yet.
When they shot the tear gas out into the protesters, did a lot of people leave after that, or did you see a lot of people stick around and stand their ground?
What the fuck are y'all
I'll be honest, I tried to find a safe place to park. Several blocks away, because this is one of those things that you want to kind of not be part of.
Yeah. And Kenny, I know you're not faint of heart, and if you're concerned, I'm sure it's a tense situation out there right now.
Yeah, I'm doing my best to blend in with the crowd, but it is definitely probably the most heated part here. There are water bottles everywhere. They spray painted most of the building. I'm going to take you over to where the pepper balls are, where I think where they may be getting ready to shoot a few more. What they look like is if you've ever seen a paintball rifle or paintball gun.
Yeah.
They use a paintball it's got the capsaicin, which is
This is Alicia.
It's like a powder that will.
All right, Kenny. Kenny, no need to get any closer. We want you to be safe. No need to get any closer to where the potential pepper balls will be shot.
Stand by. They're doing it right now.
Okay, Kenny, pull back as far as you can. Get as far away from the pepper balls as you can. Kenny, if you could hear me.
All right, we've switched to our chopper view. Kenny McGregor was down on the ground, just told us that from behind some of the barricades there, La Mesa Police are firing pepper balls into the crowd. They shoot it from basically a paintball gun. They're balls of the same material that's in pepper spray. Of course, it hits you. You're going to be crying, sometimes worse reactions than that. The crowd has backed off a little bit, but seem to just be giving themselves a little bit of space. They are not leaving at this point.
Yeah, earlier we were speaking with retired Lieutenant Ray Shea, who says the law enforcement waits until things turn violent and escalate to a point where they cannot hold back anymore, and that is why tear gas and pepper balls were deployed. We saw the station vandalized with spray paint and broken windows. We also saw an armored vehicle vandalized as well. So things remained peaceful up until about an hour ago when the protesters started vandalizing property of the police department, and now the sheriff's department has been called in for backup, and the sheriff's department is standing outside the front entrance of the police station now. We also saw CHP officers in the area and a CHP helicopter in the air. Let's go to News 8's Monique Griego now. She has the very latest. Monique, where are you located exactly?
We're actually outside of La Mesa PD. We headed over here after we were on the freeway where they had shut it down. The protesters kind of dispersed. So now I believe that a lot of them kind of headed this way. You can hear the police sirens coming in behind me. I'm sorry if I sound a little flustered, but that's because right when we pulled up and got, sorry about that if you heard that, right when we pulled up, they sent off pepper spray, and we got hit with it pretty hard, and so our faces are just stopping burning. We are staying away from the situation, obviously, for our own safety, but we had just pulled up when things kind of took a turn. Earlier on the freeway, it was not that situation. Protesters came face to face with police officers, but no violent situations happened. Right now, we're going to send it back to you guys because we're kind of away from the action. We can hear it off in the distance. And yeah, so we're going to send it back to you guys. You can see the police officers rolling in right now, and we can hear more pepper balls going off. So we're going to go ahead and get it to a safe place. A lot of them going off right now. So we're going to go ahead and get to a safe place, and we'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, we want our crews to be as safe as possible, so we're asking everybody to retreat, and we are going to give you an aerial shot right now from our chopper of La Mesa Police Headquarters.
Monique looked like she was about a block away, and we didn't get a chance to ask her because, understandably, we want to get them out of there. Where she was exactly, where she got hit with the pepper spray or the pepper balls, how close she was to that, because she looked to be about a good block away, and I don't know if they were closer and then they retreated to set up their live shot. But again, we know that the La Mesa Police Department has officers with guns that shoot pepper balls, and they're dispersing them into the crowd pretty liberally, it sounds like, from our reporters on the ground. We do see that there has been property damage done to the La Mesa Police Department. And resetting this, we haven't mentioned this in a while, why La Mesa Police Department? If you didn't know, earlier this week, there was a confrontation between a young black man and a white police officer. Now we see tear gas, it looks like, being shot out into the crowd again.
And they're running away.
Dispersing quickly.
Very fast. And yeah, you could see the smoke that appears to be tear gas that the Sheriff's Department is deploying. Monique, are you there? Are you okay? You could, Kenny is back on the ground. Kenny, I could see the smoke from your vantage point. How are you doing? Kenny? Kenny, can you hear us? Okay, so from where Kenny is, it looks like he's a safe distance away from. From all of our crews, we're hoping that they're a safe distance away from this possible tear gas and pepper balls being deployed.
This looked like it was where Monique was. They were getting ready to go, perhaps, and saw this and stayed for a moment. We think it's tear gas. We're making a little bit of an assumption based on the reaction of the people in the crowds there. It looks like that's what's going on. They had dispersed a little bit. They came back. We know they were using the pepper ball guns. That wasn't doing enough to get people out of the way, and now we see this a large dispersal of what we believe to be tear gas to get rid of the crowd. They backed off, but they just backed off about, I don't know, about 50, 60 yards. And
doesn't look like they're going anywhere. They're staying as close as they possibly can without getting any possible tear gas in their eyes. And we know the Sheriff's Department, Police Department were deploying pepper balls into the crowd. So it's escalated to a point that we were hoping it would not escalate to.
The good news, we don't know at this point. We haven't heard any reports. The good news right now is there's no injuries being reported yet. We can only hope that it continues that way for this evening, because it's a very dangerous situation.
This is earlier. This is live. This is a live shot right now of what's happening on the ground right now, right outside of La Mesa Police Headquarters. You still see smoke in the air. We're thinking it's possible tear gas, pepper balls being deployed, and it hurts a lot when it gets into your eyes. It is, and that's why people are running away so fast, but staying a safe distance away, it looks like.
Kenny, I don't know if you can hear me. This is your shot. I believe you're doing this on your phone. Kenny, you would know. Is that tear gas being deployed?
Yeah, there was a large flashbang, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, there was a large flashbang about 20 seconds ago, and then they were just unloading with the pepper balls into one of the vehicles here. Somebody was trying to use it as cover. They all scattered when that huge flashbang went off. They're slowly going in and back. Now they're running back again. I think they're throwing more tear gas at them over here.
So Kenny, I want to get this clear, because you know the difference. The canisters, are those just smoke and flashbangs, and they're using the pepper ball guns to hit people? Like, there's not tear gas per se being used.
I'll be honest, I don't know what they're using. I mean, I can only assume that the flashbang is just to disperse, and then there may be a tear gas canister, but they're also using the pepper balls. I can tell you that for sure. Here's a car going crazy here. This is reminiscent of South Central during 1992, if anybody remembers that. There's another flashbang right there with a large plume of smoke. And I'm only gonna assume that it's tear gas. There's another one being thrown. It's gonna go off right now. Stand by. Let's see if it lights off. I just saw them lob one into the crowd. It may just be tear gas from all that I can tell.
Kenny, does it feel like more people are coming to the area? You've been there a while.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There are literally thousands of people here at the police department right now. More than I've ever seen. I would say the mix, though, of age range, 20s, 30s, I don't see anyone later. There's another tear gas that went off right there, excuse me. But yes, there are a lot of people here, that's for sure. There's one with those smoke canisters, and I'm pretty sure it is tear gas because the officers that are around it have their masks on. It's getting really thick, if you can see in the distance there.
Kenny, I don't know if you've spoken to anybody who was right in front of the police station earlier before things got crazy. Was there any conversation? Was there any officer speaking to them on a megaphone? Were there any city leaders there?
No.
How are they trying to de-escalate the situation?
I have not heard any call-outs with a bullhorn. And again, earlier I was on that freeway overpass, so I'm a little late to this area. But I have not heard anything as far as being, any call-outs from the helicopter. I see our helicopter overhead. I don't see the police helicopter at the moment. Actually, I do. They're behind me. But no call-outs. The police station has been badly graffitied, badly beaten as far as rocks and bottles thrown into the windows. Where I was earlier, like I said, you could see all that damage. They were throwing rocks in front of me as hard as they could to break those windows. It just very disregard for any law enforcement right now or anybody's authority. And it's not something, I'll be honest, and I said this to our news director, Dana, I said this would never happen here. And boy, I bite my tongue now because I never thought San Diegans would take part in something like this.
Yeah, it has really escalated from when it started this afternoon. We thought it was going to be peaceful, and we were wrong. It has turned violent with a lot of vandalizing.
And there's a lot of mixed messages, by the way, on signs, everything from, expletive to the police to Black Lives Matter to protect each other. I'm looking at one, America's injustice, and those are some of the signs that I'm reading as we speak. There's some that I won't read to you, but I'm sure you know what those say.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are there with genuine anger and rage out of what they've seen happen this week and running up to this week, quite frankly, with inequality in justice and racial injustice. But there's a lot of people who are opportunistic. We know that from these situations we've seen. There are a lot of people who are just basically agents of chaos looking to cause trouble.
Yeah, and I know I'm going to toss this back to you, but just so you know, I am right in front of the police station, between the library and the police station. So this is where they are all gathered at the moment.
Okay, so we don't see any more smoke, which could have been flashbangs and possible tear gas, Kenny's, and you're a safe distance away. From what you've seen so far, we've just seen rocks and water bottles being thrown through the windows, no weapons from what we can tell, right, Kenny?
I have not seen any weapons. I think that would be a bad mistake, although a rock is obviously a weapon and anything else, but that may turn uglier if somebody attempts to do that. I see officers in the distance making a motion to go back, push back, and the ones that are actually protecting the police station are the sheriff's department. This is La Mesa PD, and it's being protected, and I don't know if you can see as I zoom in, those are all sheriffs protecting with riot gear on. And just over here in the corner, again, I don't know if you can see this, but those are La Mesa PD, I believe, with helmets, and they're the ones that had pepper balls right there.
All right, Kenny, we're gonna take a step away from you, Kenny, right now and get a little bit of different angle. Same general area, but I think on the other side, our Shannon Handy is reporting she and the photographer she's working with were hit by some tear gas or pepper spray, pepper balls earlier, but they saw the police unit, the SWAT unit, being basically attacked by people, spray paint, rocks, bottles thrown at it. Shannon, what's going on right now?
Okay, so we're at the corner of Date and Allison. We're on the south side of the police department. And as you guys have been hearing and seeing from Kenny, that armored vehicle was attacked by protesters. It got violent. And then people backed away, and we thought that was it. And then the tear gas started coming, and my photographer and I got hit a little bit. It stings the eyes, it burns the throat. So we drove away for our safety, but I want to show you guys what's going on. I'm going to try and get as close as I can. There's a 15-year-old. He says he's 15, and he says that he was in the middle of the crowd, and he got shot with something in his foot. So right now, bystanders are helping him. They are rendering aid to his leg. We're not exactly sure what happened. He says it may have been a pellet gun. Some people are saying it came from the police, but again, these are just preliminary reports. We don't know what's going on. We've seen a lot of people running from the direction of the police department, just collapsing because the tear gas is so powerful that it stings their eyes and it burns, and they're pouring water on themselves and just trying to do what they can to make that feeling go away. Again, this group of bystanders, they are trying to help this young man, 15 years old, apparently shot with something in the foot. I'm going to turn the camera around again so you can see what's going on. A lot of people came over right away to help, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through this to stay safe. I'm going to stop.
All right, unfortunately, we lost our Shannon Handy shot, but she was showing us a young man who was injured in the foot. Not sure how he was injured, but we didn't see any ambulances or fire departments in the area just yet. We saw the Sheriff's Department and La Mesa Police Department deploy what we believe to be flashbangs and possible tear gas and pepper balls into the crowd, and that had a lot of people running away very fast, but they haven't gone anywhere. They're just farther away now from the police department.
Yeah, there were peaceful protests, a little tense, a little confrontational, but mostly peaceful protests. But that all really ended about 6 o'clock tonight. There were several hours of these protests on Interstate 8 and at the La Mesa Police Department. But at about 6 o'clock, things got really rough. And one of the incidents we saw where it was really escalating was people attacking a Bearcat. It's a police vehicle. They were hitting it with rocks, bottles, we understand, paint. You see it right there. It was getting rocked. You see people throwing things at it, it being blocked.
Yeah, you could see it's cracked on the side. It's spray painted. People continuously throw rocks at it. It appears to be rocks. And it looks like that armored vehicle had to drive off, and it's gone. It's away from the scene. And then back at police headquarters, we saw the windows broken and spray paint on the building as well. So what started as something peaceful has turned into something violent, with a lot of vandalism going on to law enforcement vehicles and their headquarters.
Yeah, and we can see the big rocks on the ground. They're picking up rocks from, looks like, the landscaping there and throwing it at the Bearcat. A lot of rocks being thrown at it. And what makes it even more worrisome to me watching this, I asked Kenny McGregor, a photographer who's out there, is the crowd growing or is it shrinking? He said it's growing. More people are coming there. We're getting more people showing up to a violent situation as night falls. This isn't a good mix.
It's not. They are staying farther away from the police department, but as the commotion grows, so does the attraction and the attention for people who want to be part of this protest. And we heard them chanting, Black Lives Matter, no justice, no peace, and I can't breathe. So this is happening in cities, counties across the country, of course, sparked nationally by the man who was killed in police custody in Minneapolis. And then on top of that, locally, a controversial arrest was made at the Grossmont Trolley Center by another young black man, and that police officer is on leave. So there is a lot of civil unrest going on across the country and here locally. What you've been witnessing all afternoon is our protest here locally. No serious injuries have been witnessed so far.
If there's any way I could get a little help on this, what the chopper is looking at, I don't know what road it is exactly, what bridge, but you just see dozens and dozens of police cruisers from different agencies, it appears, lined up on that bridge. I don't know if they're lining up to stage to move into position. I can't see right now how far away they are from the police department. This could be a staging area. It seems like police are gathering, having conversations there. Perhaps they're going to be moving in, hard to know, but large numbers, looks like it's about a quarter mile away from the police department. So that makes sense that that could be where they are gathering to get ready to move in and try to use a little stronger persuasion methods to get this group to disperse.
Look at the traffic as well. The traffic is backed up on that side street, understandably so. Earlier, the entire 8 freeway in that area was shut down as well, so you can imagine the traffic nightmare this caused. It would appear that most people are off the 8 freeway at this point, and they've made their way back to headquarters, and they're in the parking lot and on the side streets right now. But traffic in this area is gnarled, and it's just a nightmare, so I would stay as far away from this area as possible. And it does not look like it's going to remain peaceful. Actually, it hasn't. It's become violent. So do not go in this area. It is not safe. Our News 8's Monique Grego is near police headquarters, far enough away for this to be safe for her and our entire news crew. Monique, what new developments can you share with us?
Well, Alicia, as you know, earlier we were at the freeway when people were there and confronting with police, but things stayed very peaceful. When we rolled up here probably around 30 minutes ago, we got out of our vehicles and we heard the first pops go off with what Carlo has added. We don't know if it's tear gas or pepper spray or whatever, but we were downwind. We're actually at the other end of the parking lot, so we're pretty far away from the police department, but we were downwind. I mean, we're across the street from the parking lot. You can see the building right there. You can see the people, and we got hit with the tear gas, and they set off more. At first it was just in front of the building, and then we just saw more closer to the street here. But if you're anywhere in this area, I mean, it gets you. So we had some crews here. I know a lot of people started to disperse, but I think as people made their way from the freeway, more people decided to come back. And we see more people arriving right now. I don't know how that's going to, or if that could escalate the situation. Also, I don't know if I'll let you listen in really quickly. Probably can't hear it too far away right now, but The police are on the overhead from their chopper saying if you do not disperse, you will be arrested. If you do not disperse, you will be arrested. And this is as more people are coming to the parking lot right now. And I'm just seeing off in the distance, you see that, Daryl? More, whatever, we don't know if it's tear gas or pepper spray is being set off in the parking lot there, which there is a huge gust of wind right now, which you can see probably in the trees, and that is going to come our way right now. So that's as more people come. You can see people, you can hear that. We'll just listen in for a second. Again, a lot of people right now just running from the parking lot. Once that hits your face, it's very hard to see, very hard to breathe, but either way, I'm not sure. I'm not in that situation. I've kept myself further away to be safe, so I don't know what is happening between police officers and the protesters. I don't know why this is being set off specifically. You guys could probably see that better from the live feed, but a lot of people now you can see just running away from the situation. We, of course, always trying to keep ourselves safe as well, but again, it seems like a lot of people dispersing, and I'm going to let you go right now. Because it's, as you can see, the smoke it's here with us as well. So we're going to let you go right now.
All right, Monique, thank you so much. And as Monique said, law enforcement is making an announcement on the loudspeaker saying if you do not disperse, you will be arrested. And that is from the chopper up ahead. So this has been declared an unlawful gathering. So if you are there, you can be arrested. So this situation has clearly escalated.
And if you're wondering why they're increasing with the tear gas right now, well, we just saw those dozens of police units with a crowd of officers from various agencies gathering. It would be kind of a standard tactic to try to get them to disperse a little, then bring more units in to reinforce in that cover. So it looks like they're trying to reinforce, harden up the La Mesa Police Department, keep people away from it. We're going to go back out to Shannon Handy, who's been on the scene there for a little more than an hour now. Definitely saw some action with the Bearcat being attacked, and a young man seems to have gotten hurt nearby. Shannon?
Yeah, Carlo, we've had to back up. I can feel the tear gas in my eyes. They continue to deploy it, so we keep seeing large groups of people run this way. I'm on the south side of the police department, about a block away. I'll turn the camera so you guys can see what's going on. You can see some people dispersing, running, a lot of people rubbing their eyes, pouring water on themselves, drinking water, just trying to do whatever they can to get that feeling go away. Okay, so see this young man right here? He says he's 15 and he says he was shot by something in the foot, maybe a pellet gun. These are people that are trying to help him. It looks like they might be taking him to a hospital, but these are good Samaritans who have been helping him. You can see, sure, yeah. They ran over to help this young man. He fell on the ground in front of us. He told us he was 15, he was here at the protest, and that he got shot with something in the crowd, but we don't know what that was. So then people started coming over to help him. Again, when we arrived, it was relatively peaceful, but when that armored vehicle got here and people started vandalizing that vehicle, that's what really started all of this. The vehicle had to back away, and then the police department has since deployed the tear gas, which you guys have seen on the air. The helicopter, the police helicopter, is overhead telling people to leave the area, telling them they will be arrested. We have not seen any arrests yet. I'm going to turn the camera around, and I'm going to kind of walk with you as long as we have a signal. I'm going to stay a ways back just for our own safety, but there's still a group of people gathered, even though they're being asked to leave. We hear several sirens in the distance. We're not exactly sure what those sirens are for, but you can see this group of people over here. They're peaceful. They're just standing here outside the library, which is next door to the police department. And it doesn't appear as though they've been impacted by the tear gas. The tear gas was deployed on the other side where we were. So these people appear to be peaceful. You hear a lot of honking. Those are cars with some of the protesters leaving. Some people just driving by, honking their horn in support. But again, this really escalated quickly. I mean, I wasn't here more than 10 minutes before things just changed rapidly. So again, as Monique said, we're trying to keep our distance because it's just not safe. But we will continue to stay out here and keep our distance and be as safe as we can. So I'll toss it back to you guys as we figure out more what's going on out here.
Hey guys.
See, what do you hear, Kenny?
Again. Okay, I'm going to turn my camera around here so you can see the officers. They're getting ready to come in. I think they're going to get ready to start arresting people. So stand by one. I'm going to walk over to all these Mesa PD just showed up right now. And I think this is going to help start pushing the crowd back. I'm on the north side. Let's back up because you won't be able to hear me at all. I'm on the north side of the Mesa PD right now. Still tons and tons of people in front. I can only assume, like I said, that these officers are here to use the sirens to disrupt a little bit audibly, and at the same time possibly start arresting people, because they did call it over the chopper that this is now an unlawful gathering. So if you do not disperse, you will be arrested. Although no one has left, they're still here. They continue to throw that pepper ball or shoot those pepper balls out. And I can see now that the police are actually entering into the police department, so it might be for reinforcements at the moment.
Yeah, Kenny.
There goes the guy throwing a rock at one of the cars.
Kenny, I can tell you, we had an aerial shot a little while ago, and this will make sense to you on the ground. You know the direction. There were a bunch of units parked on El Cajon Boulevard, the bridge there, just about a quarter mile away. It looked like they were staging, getting ready. So they did the big release of gas and pepper balls, and now they're moving in the reinforcements.
Gotcha. Like I said, there are still hundreds, if not thousands, of people still gathered here. I don't think that audible, audible warning went off, but I just got a nice whiff of this tear gas right now. Yeah. I'm all right. I'm backing up as it dissipates. Oh man, I just got a little bit of. I'm going to give it back to you right now.
All right.
Thanks, Kenny.
All right, Kenny. So Kenny just got a big whiff of tear gas. So it's a very tense situation out there. Things have turned violent. Law enforcement from several different agencies are closing in on the protesters. As you said, their strategy was to stage at the bridge and close in. Sheriff's Department is protecting police headquarters. And at this point, they're telling people, if you do not disperse, you will be arrested. This has been declared an unlawful gathering.
What we don't know is, where are all the protesters from? We're sure a lot of them are local, but we've seen with other protests around the country is that a lot of the people that get arrested aren't from those cities. So that's going to be something we're going to see in the aftermath of this. For the current time, we had mostly peaceful protests for hours today. Then about 6 o'clock, things took a hard turn towards much more stressful. Dispersal of tear gas, shooting pepper spray, rocks being thrown at officers and at officers' units. We haven't heard of any injuries other than the young man we showed getting helped into a car at this point. We're keeping our ears and eyes out for those. But again, like you said, it's an unlawful gathering. Police are moving in, and they're going to start arresting people now. Yeah, and they've made the announcement, so it is clear. People know they need to leave. And at this point, it's uncomfortable. It's not safe to be there. But from what we've seen from our crews on the ground, the crowd continues to grow. There are thousands of people at La Mesa Police Headquarters now upset over what's going on nationally in Minneapolis and what happened here locally at the Grossmont Trolley Center earlier this week. That was an incident that received quick response and action by the city of La Mesa. They've hired an outside investigator. They put the officer on administrative leave. We don't know what happened going up to it. We just know it looked really bad. And coming on in a week where we saw an African-American man killed at the hands of police officers, and it was just a very graphic video that, if you saw, had to draw out some emotions. And that seems to have been the trigger for all this. And a lot of this is built up. We've seen protests before in East County in 2017 after Alfred Alongo died at the hands of police. There were some protests there. Nothing like this in San Diego in my time here, or in its history as far as I know. Yeah, and we've seen protests everywhere. Los Angeles, there were police cars set on fire today. Yeah. This is a live shot from our chopper of the scene here in La Mesa outside the police station. As you can see, the crowd is still huge. This is a Black Lives Matter protest. We will bring you the latest updates on CBS News 8. Good night.
During tough times, a good meal can nourish more than just your body.